News, Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
News Talk 1240.
How did I not hear about the $10 bill thing? Did you hear about that? They're wanting to, they're going to put a female on the $10 bill. I don't have a problem with that, honestly. I mean, I rarely ever see $10 bills anyway, so it's not really a big deal to me. I really don't care about money anyway, right? Like, I mean, come on, who cares what's on the friggin' money? Big deal. But it's shocking to me because I had not heard about that. Did you? Because that one just came out of nowhere, out of left field. That they're putting a woman on the $10 bill. Now, again, I have no problem with that. I don't care. But whoever you want on the $10 bill, put the Napoleon Bonaparte on the $10 bill. I don't care. But I think it's a little bit shocking, actually, because I had, like, that's brand new. Last I heard, there were people petitioning for there to be a woman on the, I think, $20 bill. And I think 20 might even be more common than 10 because I rarely ever see 10s. Now's a good time, though, if you have cash, to get your 10s, right? Like, get your 10s that you have right now and save them in a box. For the next 100 years, so you can pass those down to your kids. Here's a $10 bill from the year 2015, right before they shifted it over. So you want to save up on those. That's going to be kind of important later on. Legacy money is actually worth a lot more than you'd think. Zimbabwe is actually looking at shifting over its currency to something backed on something else. I don't remember what it is, but Zimbabwean currency has actually gone up in value as a result of that. So get your $10 bills as quickly as you can. Get a stack of 10s. Ask for $10 cash back when you go to the grocery store, so you can save that up because that's going to be important later on. It'd be a cool thing to pass down to your kids anyway. This is Alexander Hamilton on the $10 bill. It was replaced by Debbie Harry from Blondie. I don't know. Who are they going to replace it with on the $10 bill? I'm kind of curious now. My vote would be Debbie Harry, obviously, from Blondie. Pat Benatar is another one I can think of. I can't think of any. This is going to sound terrible, but I can't really think of any significant females. Not that there aren't any. I just am really bad at thinking about things on under pressure. Maybe Lady Liberty, Betsy Ross. I don't know. Who are they going to stick on there? They're asking for votes. They're wanting people to vote on who's going to be on the 10, who's going to be on the 10 of them. So who knows? I'm curious now. I want to get involved in this discussion, I guess. Like, what's going to be on the $10 bill? Who knows, man? There's all sorts of course, very important people, very important female players who could be on the $10 bill. Condoleezza Rice, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to find out. She was Secretary of Defense, I think. So I don't know who they're going to stick on there, but it'll be kind of interesting. Nevertheless, maybe Lady Bird Johnson. That's sort of a safe vote. Or Eleanor Roosevelt. That's probably the most likely. Actually, is Eleanor Roosevelt when you think about it. That's the more likely, along with Lady Bird Johnson. Perhaps Jackie O will be on there. I don't know. We'll have to find out. So $10 bill, changing the face of the $10 bill. Kind of exciting. Interested to see how that's going to shift around. Well, I've gotten some questions about Android versus iOS. And it's a topic that's definitely worth discussing. So a lot of people are not really clear on what the difference is in Android from phone to phone. There actually is one, believe it or not. You wouldn't think it, but there actually is a difference from Android from phone to phone. So let's say, I have a Lenovo, right? So I have a Lenovo A850 that I bought for $200 something on Amazon, unlocked and rooted. Nice phone. I was not happy with the UI, though, not my favorite. Well, a lot of people don't know this, but actually Android is different from phone to phone. So if you get a Samsung phone, just as an example, you're going to have Samsung's called bloatware, right? Like when you buy a computer at Best Buy, it's got a bunch of crap on it that you don't want. That's just always how it is. Now, if you get a computer from, say, Affordable Computers, that you're not going to have that problem. Because the guys over at Affordable, they'll actually reformat the hard drive and install a fresh install of Windows 7 or Windows 8 or whatever they're using at the time, Windows XP, if the machine will handle that. They'll do that for you so you don't have bloatware. You don't have that problem. But generally, when you buy a computer at the store, so you have a Dell computer, it's going to have Dell software on it. Very annoying. You don't want that. Just get rid of it, but that's how it is. Well, the same thing happens with phones. Now, you don't have that problem with iPhones because the iPhones come from Apple, so everything that Apple wants on the iPhone is on the iPhone when you get it. There's not a diverse ecosystem of different iPhones. There's only the iPhone, right? You can't get different iPhones. You just have the iPhone, and that's it. Not necessarily the same song when it comes to Android. When you get an Android phone, you're going to get the UI that the manufacturer wants on that phone. Just as an example, you buy a Samsung phone, it's going to have a Samsung overlay. It's going to have Samsung software pre-installed on it. Some of it's beneficial, some of it not. How do you avoid that? Well, the best option would be, the most straightforward option, I should say, would be to buy a phone straight from Google. Yeah, Google actually does put out phones direct from them. Direct from it, I should say, over at Google. It's the Nexus series of phones and tablets, which you can get, which just have straight vanilla Android that's on it that has nothing else added to it. Now, another option, of course, is to put CyanogenMod on your phone. That is an option. You can buy the OnePlus One, which is another phone that does not have any sort of bloatware on it. It comes with Cyanogen on it already. So there are some options for getting a less bloated Android phone. Of course, it all depends on personal preference too. If you want to get an iPhone, more power to you. If you prefer an iPhone over an Android phone, hey, cool. You know, if you prefer an Android phone over an iPhone, hey, cool. As long as it gets the job done for you, that's all that really matters. So long as the thing works for you, we're all good. So as long as you can get your job done, play your games the way you want to, just use your phone the way you want to in a way that's comfortable for you, then you're all set, basically. You don't really need anything more than that. So people, especially salesmen, will try to pressure you, say, oh, well, you need to get this and this and this, and we can offer you this package, and we get this and this for you. Know what you want before you go to a store. Don't let a salesman tell you what you want. Know what you want before you walk into the store to buy whatever item it is you're wanting to buy. That's extremely important. I can't stress that enough. Know what you want before you go to a store, especially a store that specializes in selling computers. There are different stores, smaller establishments that you can talk to, and they'll tell you what you need, or you tell them what you need, and they'll tell you what they can get you to suit those needs. Again, Affordable is really good about that. Affordable Computers, they fix both sick computers, and they'll offer you new pre-built and custom-built machines, and they don't mess around. They'll actually get you what you need, as aside from some of the national distributors who are really bad about overselling you. Really, like you say that you need a machine that you can do spreadsheets on, and you need a machine that you can email, and that's basically it. And they try to sell you a Lenovo ThinkCentre for some reason. I don't know why they do that, but for some reason, a lot of them like to do that. Probably they get higher commission, but same thing goes with phones. If you want a phone, know what phone you want. Do a lot of research on your phone. Of course, you can always call the show here, 423-800-8949. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to help you out. 423-800-8949. If you have any questions about phones, I'd be happy to help you out. Computers, anything like that. I'm reasonably well versed in in those things. I spent basically my whole life being interested in phones and computers and such, so I know a little bit about them. But that's the dealio in his house when it comes to phones and iPhones and Android phones and computers. Basically, the song remains the same for both fields. You get an iPhone, it's exactly what Apple wants when you get an iPhone. You get an Android phone, not necessarily exactly what Google wants when you buy that Android phone. So it's a little bit different. Again, the two options, and there are probably more, but the two options that I can think of just off the top of my head, I should say, is you get, say, an iPhone, and you are completely happy with that iPhone, that's fine. But the other option, if you want Android, is you want the most pure Android experience you can get. A Nexus phone would be your best option from Android, or from Google, I should say. They always have the latest updates as well, so you get upgraded to Android. I think 5.0 is the newest one, Lollipop, so you get that upgrade immediately. Samsung, I think, is still struggling with getting those updates out to you, so that's another problem as well. But the Nexus phones and the OnePlus One phone are both very good options. I think OnePlus One is a little bit more technically inclined, so if you're not into the more tech-savvy aspect of owning a smartphone, I'm not sure if I'd recommend a OnePlus One. It would work, but you may have a little bit of a learning curve with that. It's very intuitive, but it's not as intuitive perhaps for a first-time smartphone user. So it's all up to you, though. Look into what you need and do some research before you walk out the door and go to Best Buy and buy yourself a smartphone, because that's usually not the best option, is just walk out the door, go to a store, and buy a phone, because usually you're probably, I don't know if I say going to make the wrong decision, but you may make a misinformed or sort of a decision that's less than informed when it comes to what smartphone you actually wanted. So that happens a lot. It's happened to me. Don't worry about it. That's just how it is. But anyway, you need to avoid that. So Nexus phones, Motorola tends to be pretty good with putting out good Android phones that has limited bloatware on it. And OnePlus One, again, are really good smartphones as well. So definitely check those out if you want a good smartphone option other than an iPhone. And again, if you want an iPhone, that's fine too. The iPhone tends to be pretty good for people who are not quite so tech savvy. So whatever you want is fine. YouTube has just launched a new service that I'm actually really excited about that could actually mean the death of TV news, which I'd be very happy about, actually, because TV news tends to be terrible, and TV news tends to not be so great when it comes to accurately reporting situations. Now, when I say TV news, I'm talking about cable news, right? Like, our local news stations are actually really good. I've been continually impressed with our local news stations here in the Chattanooga area. You know, Channel 12, of course, is our CBS affiliate. I've always been happy with their news direction. I have no problem with them. 9-3, I'm always really happy with our local stations, so that the problem I have does not apply to them. However, the cable news stations, they're all terrible. In my IMO, they're all terrible in my opinion. They're all just awful because their reporting is incredibly biased. They're owned by huge corporate interests, and it's just not good when it comes to reporting. They'd rather talk about Caitlyn Jenner than they would want to talk about, say, Patriot Act or FBI surveillance. It's just really annoying. Well, YouTube is launching a service that could actually counter that in a really effective way. YouTube is now launching something called YouTube Newswire, which is a channel that features verified eyewitness videos. YouTube announced today a trio of initiatives designed to expand the video sharing site's role in new media journalism, including eyewitness news. Most notably, the company is now launching a service called YouTube Newswire in partnership with a social news agency called Storyful, which will introduce a curated and verified feed of the day's most newsworthy events being published to YouTube. So YouTube and Storyful have now partnered up in the past, and this has been noted in a blog detailing the news, and the two have worked together since the protests broke out in Tahrir Square back in 2011. And even before that, Storyful has been working to verify and contextualize YouTube videos, and the company has said that in a statement. Since 2010, the team has vetted over 100,000 videos published to Google's YouTube site. And by the way, YouTube is owned by Google. Some people are actually kind of shocked to discover that, but yeah, Google bought YouTube in, I think, 2006 or 2007. That's partially why YouTube took off as much as it did. My friend and I were actually talking about that not too long ago, about how the heck did YouTube get to be as popular as it was? Like, there's no reason for YouTube to be as popular as it was. The answer is Google put a whole lot of money into it. So that's really the reason. Google put so much money, so much venture cap into YouTube, and that's pretty much why YouTube took off the way it did. Otherwise, YouTube would just be another startup in the dot-com bubble of the mid-2000s, and that would be it. Well, with YouTube Newswire, however, YouTube and Storyful are actually further cementing their partnership in an effort to provide journalists with resources related to breaking news from around the world, including firsthand accounts from eyewitnesses. So the noise and the need for curation have never been greater, and neither has our team's commitment to creating the best social journalism, News Corp-owned Storyful states. Now, that's something to be cautious of, by the way. News Corp-owned Storyful. Keep in mind, this is not totally unbiased, because News Corp does own Storyful. That's something that needs to be made very clear. News Corp, of course, also owns Fox News. So you might see some of the same problems that I have with Fox News along with Storyful. I don't know yet. We don't know. Maybe Storyful has a little bit more independence than Fox does when it comes to their journalism. I don't know yet, but we'll have to wait and see. But that's something to keep in mind. There's no such thing as unbiased news, right? Like, when I talk about the news, I tend to have a bias. We all do, right? There's no way to avoid that, really. If you want news that's biased towards how I think, I suppose, listen to my shows. If you want news that's biased towards neocon, then watch Fox. If you want news that's biased towards a little bit more liberal lean, then probably CNN and MSNBC would be better options for you, CNBC as well. So those are options for you. There's an option for each of those viewpoints, but you're never going to get the whole story with any of those. I do my best to give you the whole story from both perspectives as much as I can. Not so much when it comes to the tech sector, just because I'm extremely biased there, but when it comes to a story about, say a shooter that we just had in Charleston, South Carolina, then I'll try to deliver both sides of the story. And we'll be talking about that at 5, by the way, on Hot News Now. So definitely check that out. Also, if you're looking at getting into business for yourself, Bruce Krebs over at the Entrepreneur Source can get you into a franchise that's suitable to your background, your interests, your capital availability, and with our local economy. That's the Entrepreneur Source at 875-5621. That's 423-875-5621. Bruce Krebs is at the Entrepreneur Source, and tell him that you heard about him on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. The president's just now coming out with an address, by the way, about the South Carolina church massacre at Charleston. The president and the vice president have just come out with a statement, not a complete statement, but they have just taken the podium right now to talk about the shooting situation over in Charleston, South Carolina. And we're going to be gathering news on that and talk about that in probably about 6 minutes here on Hot News Talk Radio as well. Just wait for the press conference to be over so we can get proper coverage and everything. So keep that in mind. And that's right here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. A problem that we've been seeing just recently is, for some reason, I don't know why, for some reason, people think that because the Patriot Act is no more, then surveillance is now gone. And it's been widely seen as a victory for anti-surveillance advocates and activists that the USA Freedom Act passed. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is not the case at all. The USA Freedom Act really didn't change a whole lot, actually, when it passed, and a lot of people were very much opposed to it. People were opposed to it for different reasons, actually. Some saw it as further invasion of our privacy. Others saw it as too much of a weakening of our national security. I see it as definitely an intrusion upon our privacy under the facade of being a cutting back of surveillance activity that goes on with the NSA. And the NSA is, of course, an extremely bad agency, actually. They're very poor at doing their job because their job is national security. And in case you hadn't noticed, we've had 1 or 2 different national security incidents since their inception, and it really doesn't seem like they're doing a very good job. Well, former director of National Security Agency, according to Ars Technica, is not particularly concerned about the loss of the government's bulk metadata collection under Section 215 of the Patriot Act. General Michael Hayden pointed out in an interview at the Wall Street Journal at a conference on Monday that the only change that has happened is that data has been moved to being held by phone companies, and the government can get it under a court order. So people were very much happy when the USA Freedom Act passed, thinking that our data would not be gathered by the government anymore. That's not at all the case. That's not even close to true. What happens instead under Section 215, it's what a lot of people thought was happening was the government is no longer going to be able to collect your phone records. Well, that's not true at all. I was going to say that's partially true and partially not. No, it's just not true at all. What happens is the government was previously, the NSA, I should say, was previously collecting information directly, as in the government was getting information from your phone directly, just boom, like that, with their own resources. Now they have to get the information from a carrier, which really doesn't cause any problems for them. And in fact, it probably makes their job easier because now the phone companies have to curate this information for the government. So it's really just made the government's job easier. They just file a non-disclosure letter and national security letter, and they get the information that they want, and it's super easy. So unfortunately, that's the case. So Hayden said, if somebody were to come up to me and say, look, Hayden, here's the thing. This Snowden thing is going to be a nightmare for you guys for about 2 years. And when we get it all done with, what you're going to be required to do is that little 215 program about American telephony metadata. And by the way, you still have access to it, but you got to go to the court to get access to it from the companies rather than keep it for yourself. So he says, I would say, and this is it after 2 years, cool. So it appears that Hayden is not too worried about Snowden and is in fact being just a little bit obnoxious about his treatment of the Snowden situation. The scenario he put forward was Edward Snowden is going to come out with a bunch of leaks, and it's going to change how we look at national security, and it's going to make a lot of people very critical of the NSA. And what that means for the NSA is that they have to use Section 215 in a way that is actually somewhat compliant with the Constitution, even though it's still completely not. And so he's not really concerned about that. He's being very snide in his comments about Edward Snowden. So the NSA and the intelligence community as a whole still have many other technical and legal tools at their disposal, including the little understood Executive Order 12333, among others. That document, known in government circles as 12333, gives incredible leeway to intelligence agencies sweeping up vast quantities of Americans' data. That data ranges from email content to Facebook messages, from Skype chats to practically anything that passes over the internet, even on an incidental basis. In other words, Executive Order 1233 or 12333 protects the tangential collection of Americans' data, even when Americans aren't specifically targeted. Otherwise, it'd be forbidden under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978. So what happens here is the government is able to collect information from us without any sort of warrant, without any sort of real oversight, except from the FISA courts, which are very much in favor of the NSA. Anyway, so NSA run rampant yet again. It's completely trotting upon the Fourth Amendment, partially trotting upon the First Amendment as well, and it's really just flat out illegal. Like, that's all there is to it. It is actually illegal. No matter what they try to say to justify it, it's still collection of information without a warrant and is thus illegal. There's no bones about it. It's illegal. And really, they don't care about that. See, that's the thing. People thought for some reason that if we point out that these things are illegal, then the NSA will just stop. You know, they'll just stop what they're doing and turn tail and run away and say, you're right, we were wrong the whole time. That's really not what's going to happen. It's probably never going to happen. Although collapse is inevitable, just not in that way. You can't just point out their wrongs and hope that they'll turn around and go away.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing of the
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, this is your computer speaking. I don't feel so well. It's like I've come down with a bug, and I'm getting slower.
Affordable Computers. We fix sick computers. Your hometown guys at Affordable Computers will repair your PC in half the time of the big boys at an affordable price. No tricks, no gimmicks, no computer speak technobabble. Just good, quick, and courteous affordable service and repairs. Want to affordably supercharge your PC? Affordable Computers on Highway 58. Affordable Computers hand builds all desktops in-house. If you're looking for a better than new refurb laptop, $150 will get you a Dell or another name brand at Affordable Computers. Affordable Computers, Highway 58, between Arby's and Taco Bell. Also Fort O, Battlefield Parkway near Holcomb's. Affordable Computers, we service what we sell. Call 499-1975. That's 499-1975.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm feeling great. Supercharged.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
We've got a table here at Delia's and Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's and Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You love your hometown. Are you interested in free markets, in local economy? Do you hope that Chattanooga can survive the next meltdown, the next chain of disasters in the national economy? What's the best way to live out the ideals of self-government and self-determination? Join me, David Toulis, weekdays 1 to 3.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Love your neighbor, buy local.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Lillian Wu. The suspect in the deadly South Carolina church shooting has been caught in Shelby, North Carolina.
We arrested Dylan Roth, R-O-O-F, from Lexington, South Carolina.
Greg Mullen, police chief in Charleston, where 9 people were killed last night. The government taking action.
This is a crime that has reached into the heart of that community. The Department of Justice has opened a hate crime investigation into this shooting incident.
Attorney General Loretta Lynch, a win for the Lone Star State in a fight before the High Court.
Texas can prevent a group from sponsoring license plates with the Confederate flag, rules a divided 5-4 Supreme Court. The decision says in the case of a license plate, Texas can control content because license plates are state property, not something like a bumper sticker.
Fox News Radio's Jared Halpern. Fox News, we report, you decide.
People get all upset about the Confederate flag not being on license plates, especially actually state flags. There was a big debate in Georgia not too long ago. I say not too long, it's probably 15, 20 years ago now, when the state flag of Georgia was changed to remove the battle flag of the Republic, actually the naval battle flag, depending on who you want to ask, from the Confederate flag, from the Georgian flag, the Georgia state flag. Well, the funny thing is, Georgia changed the flag. The state of Georgia passed a bill that changed the state flag to a whole another flag that actually looks a little bit like the Texas flag. But the funny thing is, it's actually closer to the national flag of the Confederacy than the Stars and Bars were, because the battle flag is completely different from the regular flag of the Confederate States. This is something that Americans don't identify with at all, because the United States doesn't really have a battle flag. We just have the one flag. It's always the same. And so we don't really understand battle flags, but almost every country other than the United States actually has a flag that's different for times of war. So it's Americans don't understand that. Probably never will. Most Americans just don't get that. But it's kind of funny how that went about, because it actually got closer to the Confederate flag when we changed to the other one. But yeah, people were really mad about that. People get really mad about petty things. People get really mad about just silly things. Like, it's just a flag. Who cares, man? It's just fabric. Big deal, right? Like, it's just a symbol. Big deal. I'm not big into symbology. You know, as my religion demands that I don't care about symbols, basically. But anyway, the FBI has aerial surveillance revelations that are disturbing, to say the least. The FBI is working on this wonderful program, of course, that's going to heighten national security and make us all very happy, and we're all going to be very safe thanks to the FBI's surveillance of our skies. Well, FBI aerial surveillance revelations have prompted some backlash from U.S. lawmakers, which I wish they'd just stop making laws. Like, think about it. We have lawmakers, but what good do they do, actually? Like, consider these lawmakers. Their job is to make law. Why do we keep doing that? You know, just like stop doing that. How many laws do we have that are just getting in the way all the time, and there's no reason for them? I think about it. Why is there a law that governs like walking down the street? There probably is one. There's a law that makes it illegal to walk backwards. You know, there's a law that makes it illegal to do all sorts of just little things. Like, people commit crimes all the dang time. There's a law that makes it illegal to cut off a shotgun barrel below 17 inches. Like, what? Like, big deal. Like, 1 inch is going to make this weapon so much deadlier. And there's all these different, just ridiculous, petty laws, and all these little acts and all these little agencies that just get in the way. And just stop passing laws, man. Like, just knock it off. We don't need any more. And it's just so obnoxious. You keep seeing all these lawmakers say that, well, who cares what they say? They're totally disconnected from any sort of realistic idea of what America's actually like. Completely disconnected. They're in their own little Washington world up there where they think they're so connected. Like, oh, I know this guy who's CEO of Walmart, you know, and he told me that the market says that. It's like, well, what does he know? You know, when's the last time you actually sat down and talked with a regular Joe and actually listened to what he said? You know, chances are they probably haven't done that in 25 years, and that's usually how it is. I mean, these guys are fossils anyway. That's just something that gets on my nerves, man. Especially when you talk about passing regulations about computers. Oh, man. When they start talking about computers, it just drives me nuts. Like, I want to pull my hair out whenever they start talking about, we need to pass a law to stop encryption on computers because terrorists might use them in order to hack the United States, and we'll never be able to find them because they have encryption. So we need to put a back door into everyone's phone. We need to put a back door into everyone's computer so the FBI can look in and make sure you're not doing anything illegal. Innocent until proven guilty. What's that? National security is much more important. And we keep seeing that Every day, man, every day you see that, and it's just driving me nuts. I'm gonna jump out a window. I keep hearing about all this stuff. FBI Director James Comey is very worried about Google because Google's been a little bit defiant when it comes to backdoors, and it's just drives me nuts, man. Well, revelations that the Federal Bureau of Investigation was operating a secret fleet of small aircraft spying on the public below has prompted a backlash of sorts. Lawmakers in the U.S. Senate introduced legislation on Wednesday that would require federal authorities to get a probable cause warrant from a judge to surveil the public from above with manned aircraft or drones. So essentially, this means nothing, really. Not much is going to change. All they have to do is tell a judge, like, this is necessary for national security, or they'll lie to a judge, which they've done before, and they'll get themselves probable cause, and they'll be able to do whatever they want. So really, this is a symbolic gesture at best from the Senate. Americans' privacy rights don't stop at the treetops, says Senator Ron Wyden, who's a Democrat from Oregon. That's what he said with this proposal. The Protecting Individuals from Mass Aerial Surveillance Act was sponsored by Senator Dean Heller, and it comes 2 weeks after the Associated Press tracked at least 50 aircraft back to the FBI and identified more than 100 flights in 11 states over a 30-day period since April, orbiting both major cities and rural areas. What's more, the FBI obscured the plane's ownership through fake companies. You see, the FBI use many different fake organizations, fake companies. And by fake, I mean they did technically exist. They just were kind of fake. I mean, they existed, but they didn't really do anything other than own planes, which the FBI then used. So this is a act of espionage, essentially, that you would see in a Tom Clancy book. That's something you'd see in one of the Tom Clancy books, where they're using these Russian companies that they set up in order to spy on some Serbian interests that the CIA is interested in. Except it's not Serbian interests that the CIA is interested in. It's actually you and you and me, I should say. That's a little bit. That's a little bit shady there, what the FBI is doing. Now, full disclosure, I don't like the FBI. Full disclosure, I don't actually like any federal agency. I don't like authority, basically. I'm very rebellious. So I'm not a fan of what the FBI does in the first place. So you can understand my dismay to discover that the FBI has been doing this. But you also probably understand that it doesn't really come as any surprise at all that the FBI does such things. It's no surprise whatsoever to discover that the FBI is flying planes overhead to spy on us. I mean, is anyone really shocked to discover this? I mean, senators might pretend to be shocked to discover this, but they probably authorized the thing in the first place anyway. So it's all a big act when it comes right down to it. It's all one big act. And it's something to point and laugh at more than anything. Getting upset and yelling and stomping our feet and saying, "Oh, that government's doing it again." It's kind of a waste of time, because it's just going to keep happening. No matter what we say, it's just going to keep happening. People have this odd idea that saying things is going to change everything, right? Like if I just raise awareness enough, then I'll just be able to change everything. It really doesn't work that way, because we're all aware of the NSA mass surveillance. Edward Snowden gave us all these great records to show that the NSA has been violating our rights. But what did that change, other than now they have to go through the telecoms, and it saved them a step of organizing all this information, right? Like, this didn't change anything. So getting mad, stomping our feet and saying, man, look at the FBI and what they're doing, isn't really going to change anything. Okay, think about how so many people were opposed to the war in Iraq when that first broke out, but it didn't stop the war in Iraq from happening, right? The same thing goes for surveillance, different surveillance tactics which our government uses. I say our government, but that's a stretch. When the government does all these different actions, which are obviously counter to the Constitution, and people act all outraged, but did it fix anything? Well, no, nothing actually changed. That's the annoying thing about it. Well, the Protecting Individuals from Mass Surveillance Act was sponsored by Senator Dean Heller, and it comes 2 weeks after the Associated Press found out about all these different shell companies. Well, the thing about these shell companies that gets actually really weird is they all had websites. And all these different companies had websites. These are the websites which the FBI went through in order to buy these different aircraft and fly them under these shell agencies. Well, once these shell agencies were discovered, and once it was, we found out what they're doing, they're using these shell agencies, and they actually had websites. So we looked up these websites, and by we, I mean not me, I mean somebody else, looked up these websites, and they all use stock images of different CEOs and COOs and different secretaries and such. They all use the same images, though. I mean, the exact same images, stock photos from Shutterstock that they gathered. So the CEO is this smiling, wealthy-looking young African-American guy who looks very happy to work for this shell agency. And you had the secretary who's this young-looking, hip, kind of cool lady who's, she's really hip and cool. And there's a stock photo of her that's been taken very tastefully and very well. And it's funny because the CEO of that company is also the CEO of this company, and this company, and this company, and this company, and also works for a stock photo agency. I mean, what are the odds, really? And that's what's been going on with the FBI. It's shameful, really. It's blatant. It's lazy too. But I mean, that kind of describes the FBI anyway. So Ars Technica's Sean Gallagher described what he called the FBI's Secret Surveillance Air Force, which is a small plane with sensors perfected for battlefield intelligence in Iraq and Afghanistan that have been quietly seeing service all over the country. I mean, this country. The planes are equipped with high-def day and night surveillance systems as well, because we need to surveil regular old people. Under Wednesday's proposed measure, information collected without a warrant during these surveillance flights would be inadmissible in court. Also, the U.S. government would not contract with commercial or private plane operators to perform unauthorized surveillance. So again, now they have to do everything themselves, and they have to get a warrant, which doesn't really change a whole lot. They probably got to do their test run, and that was it. They got to do their test run without any sort of oversight. Now that's over, so they're able to do this now with a little bit more oversight than was previously seen. The proposal is riddled with loopholes. For starters, it does not apply to local and state law enforcement agencies, so the FBI can ask the Chattanooga Police Department to start flying planes around through a shell agency, and they can do that. That's fine and dandy. So that's another loophole. Further, the measure does not apply to immigration patrol within 25 miles of the land border, and all bets are off during exigent or emergency situations. Wildlife management searching for illegal marijuana growing operations are also excluded. Heaven forbid you grow a plant in your backyard. If you do, this particular plant is actually illegal. If you do, you are now subject to search and seizure and shooting of your dog and tear gas thrown in your kid's room and all sorts of terrible things because you decided to grow a plant in your backyard. Heaven forbid. And you are subject to all of these things because you decided to have some fun one day. So it's funny, though. You can grow opium poppies. No joke. You can actually buy like poppy seeds on eBay or on Amazon, wherever, totally legal. Plant them in your backyard, synthesize opium, and not really much can be done about that unless they find out that you're doing this for purposes of making opium. But I mean, you can do that. You can make morphine in your backyard if you want to. And I'm not encouraging you to do so, but you can, just as much as you can grow marijuana. But one is legal and one is not. Morphine, fine. Marijuana, forget about it. Going to jail for a long time, my friend. Ridiculous. Well, even with all these loopholes, the measure has slim chances of actually landing on the president's desk for signature. Lawmakers are loath to demand probable cause warrants to protect Americans' privacy because lawmakers don't actually care about privacy. That's the thing that really needs to be understood. We see all these different lawmakers. And I mean, I take issue with that anyway, that the fact that there are lawmakers in the first place, I take issue with that because we really don't need any more of those laws. I'm kind of tired of seeing all these new laws. We don't really need any more of those. So stop that already. If they packed up and went home, I'd be very happy. Government shutdown, that sounds like paradise to me because I don't really want it anyway. But you have all these lawmakers and they'll find out, air quotes, about this new program that they authorized in the first place. They'll find out about this new program. And once they find out, press release, I'm very dismayed to discover that these agencies, which we trust and are also very necessary, by the way, and we should respect them and trust them, are doing all these terrible, awful things. And I'm very upset about this. And I'm going to do my best to pass legislation, even though I authorized it in the first place back in 1996. So you find out about this and they go, going to write this bill, put it on the president's desk. President doesn't sign it. Press never talks about it again. And that's the end of it. You see, it's all a show. It's like Broadway. What goes on in the Senate, in the House, it's all Broadway, man. It's all just a big old show. And the more people get that, the better we'll all be. Because the more we realize that these people really don't matter, they're just a big joke. The more we realize that they're just a joke and it's all an act, probably the better off we'll be, honestly. Because ignoring them half the time is the best policy. It's controlled apathy is the phrase I've coined, which you can use. You're free to use. It's open source. Controlled apathy is the phrase that I use for that. It's under Creative Commons. Don't worry about it. You can use it all you want. The most recent example was the passage of the USA Freedom Act 2 weeks ago of the lawmakers caring about our privacy. That measure Obama signed alters the bulk phone metadata spying program that Edward Snowden disclosed 2 years ago. Of course, Edward Snowden refers to former NSA contractor Edward Snowden. Here's how the act, or rather, here's how Ars Technica describes that act, saying, as the new legislation, however, the bulk phone metadata stays with telecoms and is removed from the hands of the NSA. It can still be accessed with FISA court's blessing as long as the government asserts that it has a reasonable suspicion that the phone data of a target is relevant to a terror investigation and that at least one party to call, at least one party to call to the call is overseas. As Ars Technica has repeatedly stated, the Constitution's Fourth Amendment standard of probable cause does not apply. The metadata includes phone numbers of all parties in the call, numbers of calling cards, time and length of calls, and the International Mobile Subscriber Identity, or ISMI, of mobile call, or IMSI, I should say, of mobile calls. Again, calling cards are a totally foreign concept to most people my age. Calling cards are way outdated. Nobody uses those anymore. I have not seen an MCI calling card in about 10 years. And I was 10 years old last time I saw a MCI calling card. So that dates me a little bit. I'm a youngin'. But it's one of those things where you read about all these things and you get really steamed. You just get really steamed when you read about all these different programs the NSA has, and you get really mad. And you get really upset. It's kind of like when you watch videos of cops beating up people on the street. You just get really mad, and you think, man, what can I do about that? And what am I going to do about all this? And you kind of realize that there's not really a whole lot that we can do, but something that needs to be realized is that these things are going to keep going on for quite a long time. If not quite a long time, then a few weeks. These things are going to keep going on. The cop beatings are going to keep going on. NSA surveillance is going to keep happening. But that's not necessarily okay, but it's not the end of the world yet. What is going to happen, though, is a total collapse of these things. And that's where the positive side comes in, is these things are completely unsustainable. Control over economy is unsustainable, which is, these different measures are the enforcement of the control of the economy, of course. It's completely unsustainable. We talk about loss of faith in government. People are going to rapidly lose faith in government. We're even hearing national talk show hosts talking about how we shouldn't trust the government. I've never heard that before. And that's such a shocking thing, where you hear very prominent conservative talk show hosts talking about how we shouldn't trust the government. Like, what? Even during the height of the Obama scandals with healthcare and everything, they even still defended the government as an idea, saying that we really should trust government because it's in our best interests, and when you tax dollars and Social Security and yada, yada. We kept hearing these ideas. But now, even national, very prominent, very respected, for some reason, talk show hosts are saying that we should stop trusting the government. Wow. So this loss of faith is what's going to lead to a collapse. So people suddenly realize, man, I don't need government. I don't need Social Security. I don't actually need police protection. It's a crazy idea, but maybe I don't actually need all these things. And when that idea starts to come about, to put it in economic terms, there'll be a mass loss of shares. People start selling their stock in government, saying, hey, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. It's not worth a whole lot. And there won't be anyone to buy those stocks. And so the government will collapse. And that's okay. That's cool. It's good. It's rad, because it's an opportunity to come back and rebuild, or better yet, not rebuild what we once had. And we'll have a free market for at least a while, right? Like, there's always going to be somebody who's going to say, man, I think we should have a government because we're entitled to different protections, and we're entitled to healthcare, and we're entitled to protections from corporations and all that sort of thing. So there's always going to be somebody who's going to come up with that idea 50 years down the road. But until then, we will have a true free market system for at least a few years. Well, there's always going to be a free market system anyway. It's called the black market, but there's always going to be a free market system. And that's where you actually see real market value of particular items, because then you have risk, you have profit. All these things are different, are taken into effect. But anyway, speaking of being hyper in caffeine, I'm on a lot right now. I'm hopped up on caffeine right now, which is good because caffeine is my favorite drug. And I just found out something really cool about caffeine, which is that caffeine could actually limit the damage of chronic stress. So during periods of chronic stress, we often up our caffeine consumption, right? Well, this works better than you might expect, actually. This increase can reduce some of the negative effects of long-term stress, including depression and memory deterioration. neither of which I suffer from too much. In a new study published by PNAS, researchers dug farther into this finding, examining the signaling networks that caffeine influences within the brain. One of the proteins they identify is a potential treatment target for the symptoms of long-term stress. So good news for everybody who drinks coffee. It turns out that drinking coffee can actually help us. We already knew that. Here's the thing about drinking coffee, though. I want to touch this real briefly because people are very misinformed about this. You'll hear about all the health risks of drinking coffee. That's if you put tons of cream and sugar in it. If you don't do that, just drink straight black coffee that you've ground yourself, there's so many health benefits. There's amino acids, it's an anti-aging, all sorts of cool things that are in there that a lot of people don't even really think about. But yeah, drinking black coffee has tons and tons of health benefits, and more people should do it. Plus, if you haven't had any sleep the night before, then now you have a excuse for drinking tons of really good tasting coffee. Well, the Air Force is cutting back on drones, which is good news for us because I don't really feel like getting blown up for my dissenting views. The Air Force is cutting back on drone missions to ease pilot burnout. Flying an airplane is a very stressful thing in a combat situation, I'm sure. Flying a drone in a combat situation is a very stressful thing, I'm sure, as well. Something I'm noticing is that people my age are not really signing up for the military. Now, I can think of a few choice examples, right? Like, I have a friend who joined the Marines. I have a friend who joined the Air Force. But aside from that, I don't really have a whole lot of people who are my exact age who have decided to go off and join the military. And that's kind of an interesting concept to me as well, because people are actually losing a lot of faith in that whole idea as both a career option and as a philosophical, ethical thing as well. People are not really wanting to join the military nearly as much as they were before, especially if you look at fresh after 9/11. Everyone wanted to join either as a career option or as a method of, I guess, revenge, even though the Saudis were actually responsible. And anyway, as the Air Force's reliance on drone missions continues to rise, so too does the stress of its drone pilots. Now the military is hoping to curb burnout in these personnel by cutting back on the number of daily drone operations, reducing them from 65 per day all the way to 60. Wow. The move is in response to the many first-generation drone pilots who are choosing to leave their positions once their service time is up. Right now, the Air Force has around 1,200 pilots who are undermanned and overworked, according to Colonel James Clough, speaking with the New York Times. He notes that these pilots must often switch off between day and night shifts, and they don't have much guarantee of any downtime or career advancement. So basically, it's a dead-end job where you're forced to blow people up. Doesn't sound very good to me. Meanwhile, the Air Force is also struggling to produce new recruits, since instructors are being used as pilots themselves to accommodate the increase in drone missions. Without some kind of shift in operations, the military is faced with losing more operators than it brings in. The cutback in missions may ease the stresses on pilots, but it means less surveillance activity in war zones like Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. I, of course, see this as a good thing. The move could also create issues for the CIA, which uses drones for targeting terrorist suspects, including those involved in the growing Islamic State. Note that it's terrorist suspects, not convicted terrorists, because heaven forbid we actually send people to an international crimes court of any sort in order for there to be a fair trial. We'll just blow them up because they may possibly maybe be terrorists. We don't know. The word terrorist has such negative connotations these days. What's the deal, man? Well, we're seeing a lot of that. And it seems that the decline in people wanting to join the military is indicative of a broader, I don't want to say problem because I like it, but a broader idea that people are just losing faith in the government. And people are realizing that party doesn't matter. I keep talking to people every day. I meet new people who say, yeah, voting's a waste of time. And people are really starting to lose faith in the feds. And people are starting to gain a lot of respect for local economy, much more so than they had for the federal economy, which is great. So Nuganomics.com with David Toulis is coming up in just a few minutes, where he's going to be talking about that in length, I'm sure, right here on Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240. It's Nuganomics.com with David Toulis, a very Nuga-centric show right here, Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing of the Don't worry, just relax. You need a car, Come to Automax.
My wife and I keep the cost down. We sell a quality vehicle at a great price. Our overhead is low. I have no employees, so I can keep my costs down. In turn, the consumer gets a better price. Everything that I sell is emission ready. We really try to go the extra mile for our customer. I don't have to pay an employee commission. I don't have to pay somebody to come out here and wash my cars. You know, I do it all from buying to selling from A to Z. I don't have the overhead where I have to raise the price on my vehicle to cover costs. Here at Automax, you're going to guarantee that you get credit. As long as you're making those payments, you're going to build on your credit. Unlike the buy here, pay here's where they don't report to credit bureaus, we report to all 3 credit bureaus. The subprime lenders that we deal with, you don't have to have any credit, or you can have bad credit. You can even have a bankruptcy, a repossession.
Don't worry, just relax, get in the car. Come to Automax.
Automax, across from Central High on Highway 58 in Harrison. Automax, 643-2886. That's 643-2886. Go to automaxchat.com. That's automaxchat.com.
Surgery does not have to be financially painful. Hi, I'm Surgical Dr. David Red, and I'd like to invite you to my walk-in surgery clinic in North Shore. Quick Surge brings you immediate relief from moles, skin tags, maybe a laceration. Quick Surge. You walk in, fill out a mini form, I numb the area I'll treat, and before you know it, you're on your way home. Do I take insurance? No, because I take cash customers. I have super low